I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll
take a moment for silent reflection.
Okay, Michael?
Calling the meeting to order. This meeting has been posted and announced in accordance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. Mr. Demkoff, please call the roll.
Mr. Barrera?
Here.
Mr. Kubler?
Here.
Mrs. Lamparello?
Here.
Mrs. Torres?
Present.
Mr. Vallon? Present. Ms. Dolan?
Here.
And Mr. Rivera.
Here. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session and public session of April 18th, 2016 and May 2nd, 2016? As amended, I'm sorry.
Special meeting.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Demkoff?
Mr. Barrera?
Yes.
Mr. Kubler?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamparello?
Yes.
Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Vallon?
Yes.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
And Mr. Rivera.
Mr. Demkoff, I will be voting yes for April 18th, and I will abstain from May 2nd. Do we have a student government rep tonight?
Student government, anyone from student government?
No. Okay. Moving on, items to be presented by administration, Dr. Thompson.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. We're wrapping up testing, and we are moving to the end of the school year, so looking forward to graduation. I'm proud to announce, I'm going to steal Mr. Pagano's thunder at some point. We had our portfolio assessments, which are students that are looking towards graduation. We had a 100% passing rate, which is very commendable to the staff and Mr. Pagano. I know there are a lot of neighboring districts that didn't have that type of number, so we're very proud of our teachers who helped with the portfolio and scored it, etc. So thank you very much. I wanted to say that publicly. A lot of great things happening in the buildings. Hoping that the weather stays nice so we could do some stuff outside. We do have some ideas moving past the summer for some perception issues moving forward to help us, work with the town's call to make this a beautiful Belleville. So we're working on that as well. Fusion, Dr. Guzmano and staff, and a lot of our teachers are working on this multicultural event, the third in our series of 3 that we put together when I first came to the district. This will be a celebration of all different ethnicities. It's going to be here on June 4th. There are flyers, I believe, somewhere, I thought. Hopefully we'll have them. If not, you'll definitely see them out. We have big signs going up and everything. Please stop by, celebrate your ethnicity as well as other ethnicities in Belleville. And again, moving forward, hopefully we will have these again next year. Summer reading, I see Mr. Urshak's here. He did a nice little article on that in the Belleville Times regarding our summer reading challenge. We had this last year. I was new to the district, so the publicity piece was out there, but again, there's a lot of stuff going on last summer, so hopefully we want you to make sure our students, thank you very much. We want to make sure our students do some reading over the summer. Thank you very much. Do some reading, and we want to focus on making sure that our children aren't just stagnant over the summer. We want them to have some fun, obviously, but everybody can read a chapter book or two. So please help us out with that. That's our summer reading report. And that's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you, progress.
Thank you, Dr. Tomko. Report from the State Monitor, Dr. Thompson. Mr. Egan.
Promotion.
Thank you. Just quickly, it's this past month I've been involved reviewing began my year-end review to ensure that we're in compliance and that the books are balanced. Also looking into a new initiative which will tie into some of the things that the district is looking to do as far as priorities with the infrastructure. We're going to look into solar panels as a revenue source to help us address the staggering price of kids in the building. I'll look forward to report that at a later date. Last, I'm very happy for, and I'd like to compliment the superintendent and the board's negotiating committee that was dealing with the PEA, which they have now a tentative agreement. We sent to me for review. I basically am improving it, but I sent it back with some what I call, I believe, minor language changes. And that's the point that we're at now. I think the board attorney sent those changes to the association, and we're just waiting for them to, if they approve those changes, then they can start the process of ratifying the settlement. Once again, the superintendent, together with the board's negotiating team, did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. May I have a motion? Oh, before we start, Dr. Tomko?
Yeah, real quick. Thank you. Mr. Rivera has given me the opportunity just to speak very quickly on some of the agenda items that I'm sure some of you are very curious about. So I wanted to go over that very quickly in conjunction with the new positions. Not so much the personnel, we're not talking personnel, just the actual positions. So I think a common inference would be that these new position titles that you see on here for the board to accept tonight, which I believe is number 16 under pay, I think you would probably think immediately that these would be additional positions. They are not. These are positions that we are going to be transferring already hired individuals, same salary. What happened is, again, if you recall some of my meetings last year, and what I said to the board was, that me being new here, there were a lot of things that I thought had to be changed. And in conjunction and working with board committees, we realize now, after a full year here, that working with some state officials, besides Mr. Egan, and some county offices, there were some things that were lacking here. And we know that we can't afford additional positions, as Mr. Egan did in my first year as well. We consolidated some of the administrative team. So what we did is we shifted some of the responsibilities by creating new job descriptions. So that's what you see, and those job descriptions have been provided tonight for you. Those job descriptions are some of the same titles that you may see. For example, Commissioner Heskey as the Chief Talent Officer, so we utilize that. Senator Reese as the Director of Operations. So basically, we've utilized some of those descriptions to help catapult this district into where it needs to be. The Chief Engagement and Partnership Officer is a direct liaison to the community. One of the things I heard in my 90-day entry plan when I went to all the schools was that there was a lack of community involvement, and there was a lack of a bridge to the superintendent's office. Now, I wish I could be everywhere that I can, and I have a hard time even getting into the buildings that I want to because of things that are happening. So this office will not only be able to disseminate information to, Belleville Times, other necessary media groups, but also we want to put out a, hopefully 3 or 4 times a year, a community newsletter about curriculum and whatnot. We need a liaison for the HSAs and the PTOs and the OPEs. We need someone that works there. Continue with the library board. There's a lot of things that happen that one office can't handle. And when you don't have an assistant superintendent, which again, was a financial consideration as well, we need someone to help me make sure this district is functioning, especially on the community piece. So those are some of the things that they may say here. These aren't additional people that are being hired. I know it's probably what the concern is. It's not. Again, it's a shift in description and then transfer. So that's where we're at with that. So I just wanted to make it clear, because I know somebody was probably going to come up with a question. Again, these are considered what they call unrecognized titles. There's something called a matrix. Every certification in the entire district has a matching matrix title. Okay? The boards of education are permitted to have unrecognized titles as long as they have the backing of appropriate certifications, and then again permission from basically the county superintendent's office, who basically just makes sure that everything's in order and I follow statutes, et cetera. That's all been taken care of in advance. The job descriptions are again here for you tonight. So everything has been followed appropriately. It's not uncommon for unrecognized titles in the state of New Jersey especially, as long as they fulfill some kind of need. And we definitely have the need here if you look at these job descriptions. Okay, so I appreciate the few minutes, Mr. Rivera. Thank you so much.
Thank you. May I have a motion to open for public comment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Remarks by citizens, agenda items only. Remarks regarding agenda items that are relevant to the educational system. A participant must sign in and be recognized by the presiding officer and must preface comments by an announcement of his or her name, place of residence, and group affiliation if appropriate. The individual called shall proceed with a maximum of 3 minutes. All statements shall be directed to the President of the Board of Education. No participant may address board members individually. Vincent Francantoni, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your group affiliation.
Vincent Frantantoni, 129 Mount Prospect Avenue. First, I'd just like to preface my remarks that I'm a member of the Facilities Committee. Can I make a recommendation that we have the architect draw up specifications and we go out to bid, see if we can get a contractor to install that ceiling tile properly before it falls on somebody's head.
You know what, Mr. Francantoni, you brought that up to the last minute that we were in here, and you are absolutely correct. I mean, Dr. Thompson, can you make sure that gets taken care of?
If this is the example of the kind of management we got, that's a simple thing that shows what we're doing.
You're absolutely right, sir. We'll get it taken care of.
Now, you're correct, Mr. Tomko, we're going to ask about these new positions.
Yes, sir.
These 3 new positions, when you look at the list under item 24, you transfer the same person from one position to the new position. Are you eliminating that other position?
Yes.
In other words, we're eliminating a director of curriculum and instruction,
Correct.
and we're eliminating a supervisor ELA and social studies,
Yes, sir.
and we're eliminating the principal of school 8.
No.
No.
Well, that person is going into one of the new positions.
Yes. And there's a backfill for that position as well.
So we are adding personnel.
No, we're eliminating Director of Grants Management.
Is that on here?
Yeah, it's the first one.
Where is a resolution eliminating these
The
positions?
titles will still be there, but they're not going to be, there's going to be no money allotted to them.
Well, that's our fear.
There's no, sir, well, let me stop you for a second.
Leave the title
There's a
there.
state monitor here, and again, let me just preface this. There is nothing that I want more than everybody to understand how the academic environment of this district should be. Okay, and being new, I know changes is very difficult. However, there is nothing that would, let's say, make me popular or anything popular is if I snuck 3 additional people in without the board knowing it or you knowing it. So I am telling you here on record that those positions are not going to be hired. They're not eliminated by resolution or statute. They're on the books. The money's not there though. It's not there, and I guess I could provide that for you honestly.
Well, it seems, I can go back 25 years.
I understand.
When I was a commissioner, we cut the Board of Education budget by a big amount, $500,000, and they took us to court. But we had like 20 supervisors of instructions, and we won in court to eliminate those positions.
Right.
We have too many titles. We got to get back to we need teachers to teach our kids. We have all these high-paid positions, all these fancy names and titles and all that, and we never got back to basics. And when are we going to actually get back to basics? This is U.S. News and World Report, fixing our schools. And it says how bad our school system was. This is 1970. We're still in the same boat. We're not fixing our schools. We're just adding outrageous salaries and positions, not only in Belleville, all over, on the state level and all. And our children are the ones that are getting hurt. I brought up, I don't know if you were here, but the last 2 years I keep bringing my trade magazines. There's a infinite shortage of tradespeople. And yet, we don't want to realize that 80% of jobs in America do not require education, so we're doing this phony thing, pushing every kid for college, and we're not getting there. And meanwhile, the trades are hurt. They can't get carpenters, they can't get plumbers, you can't get electricians. So we're on the wrong track. So I'm asking the new board members who were recently elected the last year or two, because look at your campaign literature, you know, you fought against the previous administration, and all I see is saying play different actors. So
Mr.
please,
Franklin,
I'm
Mr.
begging
Franklin.
you, get rid of all these high pay, and let's get back to basic math, intelligent reading, and English.
Thank you, Mr. Planton. Georgiana Polite, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your group affiliation if appropriate.
Good evening, Georgiana Polite. I'm a parent. I see that there's a resolution on the addendum concerning a personnel matter. And I'm not going to read it, but basically it asks for a medical and psych evaluation. Personally, I think this is a great idea. In fact, I think it's so great that all the administrators should perhaps go under psych and a medical evaluation. I'm not being sarcastic, I'm really being sincere. Perhaps that'll help to reduce our insurance premium. Perhaps that will give the parents and the community a better sense of who's minding the shop, who's actually handling the matters that are near and dear to our hearts as far as our children are concerned. Just because you're in a position, just because you have the credentials and education, does not necessarily mean that you're the right person for the job. Perhaps you're not the right person at that particular school, or maybe Belleville's not the right place for you. So, as they once said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Let's all look at who we have minding the shop. Let's give them all periodic evaluations. Oh, and by the way, random drug testing. Also on the agenda is professional development with Title II funds. I see that there's a trip going to Harvard, and there's 5 individuals going to Harvard, and we're spending over $8,000 on that trip. Not that professional development isn't important, but seeing that our finances are so strained such that they are, perhaps there's something else in terms of art of leadership, either through online. A lot of professional development courses are available through webinars and seminars online. I'm looking at parking is $245 per individual. Mileage is $135 per individual. I don't know where they're parking at in Massachusetts, that over a 3-4 day period, that's $245, but, and the hotel is $1674. I mean, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 people can bunk in the same room, save some money there. I don't know how this amount came to be or what it involves, but I think we need to look at better use of our dollars. Last but not least, on the at the last meeting, we talked about $2.4 million being spent on our boilers. There was a little caveat to that, which, if you read closely, it gave the superintendent, the president, the vice president, the BA, and the state monitor the availability to change, amend, or correct any of the agreement between the Board of Ed and the company that's supplying the temporary boilers without having board approval. Now, I know that some things have a sense of, there's a sense of urgency, but we've already had our fair share of things being done without total board approval. So I ask that you reconsider that and at least keep the community and the taxpayers in the loop before such drastic changes are made. I understand if it is an emergency situation, it's the middle of the night and a pipe breaks.
Ms. Platt, I'm going to cut you off there too. But I'm sure Mr. Egan is here, and Mr. Egan is watching those dollars for the state,
And I would be quite sure that we're looking at probably spending less money than the full $2 million. So, but I'm sure Mr. Egan, who's here to monitor our spending, will make sure that no overspending takes place. Thank you, Ms. Collette. Arlene Shore, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your group affiliation if appropriate.
Arlene Shore, 75 Rossmore Place. I'm going to also address the fact that as someone who has been on the board and as board president, I'm not used to seeing, I don't think any of us have ever seen this type of an addendum before, where we are specifically mentioning a code number rather than a name. However, please be advised that as board members, you know that those code numbers are available when you go into your financial records. Not just for this person, but for any other person who is employed. So it's not as confidential as you're presenting it. This is inappropriate. This belongs, if anything, in your private sessions. This is highly inappropriate, what you're doing. This is outright public harassment. Need I say that this is one individual right now, but I've heard that this person lives in Belleville. This is what's rampant. You're denying her, by the way, her right to vote. If you don't allow her to come to the building, which is her American right. You cannot deny her the right to access to this building. Number two, let us not forget that the same patterns have applied to Mr. Naziola when it was inconvenient, Mr. Silvera, Mrs. Gamara, a guidance counselor, I know her first name, I don't know her last, I think it's Francesca, a math teacher, an English teacher. Teachers who spoke at the last meeting and said they have targets on their backs. So you need to take a look at what's going on. And creative, your job postings, yes, you do need to have annual postings that are not on your authorized state-approved list. So therefore, we will be checking to make sure that the people who have been in positions that are not authorized on the state-approved list, that you did get county superintendent's approval for that. And I guess you know that you will have to continue to get annual approval. You did supposedly get approval. I agree. No, you let others speak. You can't cut me off on this one. Your job descriptions simply showed up on your website this afternoon for these new positions. How can you have a job posting? Where was it? Where was your 10-day notice? What was your vehicle for that? Yes, we have salaries that perhaps will be the same. Whether it's the same or not, you have to post them. You didn't do that. So the administrative postings, the job postings, the notice of the postings, all right, the county superintendent's approval. And at this point, you have your director of grants management. I understand that perhaps that's a transfer, but you needed to get that approval as well. For every single one of these positions, you either have to show unit step, or if they're not part of the unit, you have to show either the salary, either the stipend, or either the hourly. As Mr. Debikoff, you know that now you are on an hourly rather than a per diem. So if it applies to you, it applies to everyone else. You're the experts, you're the state monitor, you should know better. And for those of you who simply politely question because you want to be at the microphone, have a backbone, stand up for something that is really wrong and embarrassing, and stop harassing the people of this district who are trying to do these jobs.
Thank you, Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your group affiliation if appropriate.
Joan Schmidt, 61 Hill Street. Would you clear something up? You said that there's no new jobs created. I mean, you're just shifting them over, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that means we're not gonna have an assistant principal at the high school anymore.
There we are. It's not a new job, it's already there.
Yeah, but he's going to school 9 to 10. So you will have to hire someone else though, right? There'll be a hiring of new people.
But it's not a new position.
All right, but it's gonna be hiring new people.
Yeah, 2 new positions, right?
Yeah. All right, so we are gonna be spending more money.
No,
We should.
actually probably less money.
Why?
Because most likely the person we hired will probably be coming at a lower step than the current people there.
And what about this director of grants, Mr. Guzman? You're eliminating that job, you said? So it wasn't very important. I mentioned to you once, why Bruno Associates do the grants. And
It's
you
been,
said-
like I said, it's been consolidated into the other positions.
Yeah, but
So we've used
before,
the job descriptions.
why did we have that grants job to begin with?
For NCLB, because there was no assistant superintendent to assist me with that, so we needed the position. So now, as I said, we've shifted that into one of the other titles.
So what about all these other jobs that were shifted, the school nurse, all that stuff? They're gonna
Those aren't
shift-
shifted, those are transfers.
Yes, they transferred, but the jobs are still there.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
All right, the school nurse at 4 is going to the middle school. So
Okay.
who's gonna be at 4?
If there's no transfer there, then we would have to hire because it'd be an open position. It's not an additional position, it's an open position. There is actually one additional nurse because we were missing one nurse because middle school only had one nurse for 1,500 students. So you are correct, there is one nurse.
Yeah. But the director of grants, as I've spoken to you before, we had Bruno Associates, and to me that was just an
It's
added
not,
job.
Bruno Associates does not do NCLB grants, but thank you.
Michael Sheldon, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Good evening, Michael Sheldon, 47 Flood Street. Just a quick question for the chair, to Dr. Tomko. In regard to the new positions, titles that are being created, item 16, do you know offhand how many other districts, either locally in Essex County or in the state, have similar positions, Director of Operations, Chief Talent Officers, or Chief Engagement and Partnership? Are there any, do you have?
No, I don't know offhand, but I know that almost every district in the county has 2 or 1 assistant superintendent.
Right. But, because this was posted so late, there wasn't a whole lot of time to do any meaningful research, but what I found, or didn't find, is that there are probably any schools, either in New Jersey or in the nation, that have titles like this. And of the handful that do have chief engagement officers or director of operations, chief talent officer, they're all charter schools. All right, so I know I had asked you to
Are any,
recently
there any, you
about-
say in public schools?
No, I couldn't find any.
They're all
public
charter schools?
They're all charter schools. I know I had asked you recently about your position, I know you, and I.
Very
I
against
thank
charter
you.
schools.
I thank you for that. You went on record saying you were opposed to charter
Yes.
schools, but what I found is curious that it's only the charter school industry that has these types of jobs.
Chief engagement officer is a community liaison. I mean, I think that's done. Again, Commissioner Hespe has a chief talent officer, so that's also in there. Senator Ruiz has a director of operations, so I don't know, I'm using some titles that are, if you look at the job description, I think you'll see that they're very similar with added responsibilities to what we've had previously.
I have one other question regarding item C8. All in favor of any SAT prep programs for the high school students, but I noticed at the very end of C8, it says that the cost per student is $375. Is this something that the students themselves have to bear, or is this being borne by the district?
That's the cost right now per pupil. What I'm trying to work on with the board, it's gonna take a few months, is an incentive program where it's like a reimbursement type thing, but I can get more information to that.
Are the students having to spend $375 each?
I believe right now it's a combination. We're gonna try to offset some of that. It's an additional cost to the parent.
All right, if you can, I would,
I'll
it's
get
in
it to you.
everyone's interest to try to cover the cost for the
Absolutely.
students. Thank you. Thank you.
Ashley Barbosa, please come to the mic. State your name, your address, and your affiliation if appropriate.
My name is Ashley Barbosa. I live on 59 High Street. I'm a student here at Belleville High School. I'm a junior. Good afternoon. I'm in Mr. Goodman's Algebra 2 class. Like others throughout the school, we have heard the sudden news that Mr. Goodman may not be here next year. I'm here representing an overwhelming amount of students to say that Mr. Goodman goes above and beyond his duties as an educator. With not only his character, hours of after-school help, but his methods and techniques to teach his students. We have a petition going around the school with almost 300 signatures that I can bring to your office tomorrow, Dr. Sanko. We hope that you look further into this because Mr. Goodman is definitely a rare find. And even though he's only been here for 1.5 years, he has definitely improved many of the lives of the students and made math very easy for all of us. There are a group of students here also in the back that support this idea. This is only a small percent of those who support Goodman and believe that he should be here next year. We can't express to you guys how much he benefits the math wing in this school. We hope that you look further into this again and the end result benefits us.
Thank you.
Leslie Reyes, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your group affiliation if appropriate. You don't have to give your address.
I'm Leslie Ray, and also about this in being not here next year. I never learned math last year, and this year I was excited to come into math and he taught me everything. And it was a good year so far, and it makes math fun and it makes math easy to learn. He's an excellent teacher, and everyone loves him. And I can tell you that math is not my best subject, but Mr. Goodman's instruction, I've comprehended all of the things he has taught me. And I speak on behalf of many students, class, and you to be considered behind Mr. Goodman for the next year. And thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Mattingly, please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and your group affiliation if appropriate, sir.
Better for my back.
I understand.
Jeff Mattingly, 56 Walnut, Belleville. To belabor the point, we're not increasing cost of administration by these transfers.
Everything's by contract.
There's going to be positions, though, that will have to be filled.
The only administrative backfill piece will be, if the board goes ahead with the transfers, is 2 vice principal positions.
And those will increase, or those are filled in again?
No, those are fill-in. They're not additional positions.
So it's not going to be an increase other than whatever contractual obligations are pre-existing?
Correct.
All right, just a question. Wasn't Mr. Acosta more or less going to be an assistant superintendent? Back when everything shifted into a final format for administratively?
Before I got here?
No, when you finally did get here. What did, Mr. Acosta is now where in the?
Right there. He's a director of testing and data. One of the things that we were lacking here was a whole data component to get to the teachers, so we needed that position. So we consolidated some positions when I got here to create those positions.
Right, okay. All right. I'm also on the facilities committee. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very much like Vinny in terms of we need to take care of our facilities. Our maintenance and staff that clean the facilities are down, way down in terms of population.
Correct.
The school's showing it.
Yes.
I'm a broken windows kind of guy. I think that, I think you may have said when you come to the district and you see upheaved concrete and pothole-ridden driveway and so on and so forth, you say to yourself, maybe this isn't for me. And this is a perfect example of that. I understand we still have a rodent problem in and around down in the, and I see that there's built-in examinations of busing and all various things that need to be considered, and I like the idea of professionals coming in from outside of the district and analysis being done of efficiency. I'm hoping it won't cost an arm and a leg, because we obviously don't have the money. But we need to hire more maintenance people. We need to have efficient coverage of cleaning our facilities and keeping them painted and maintained and fixed and functional without, long-term waits and things of that nature. So I'm very happy to see that there's professional development, which I think is necessary moving forward, and that it be a proportional investment that doesn't cut into the bone of actually getting back to the ABCs and, teaching math and science and language arts effectively to not only meet these tests, but to meet general ability going down the road. So I would hope that in short order, we're going to find money budgetarily to bring back the strength of our maintenance department, which is really necessary. And I have quite a few friends in and around the district and in the town, and it's stressed out, it's stretched, and we need it. So let's, when we're considering all these other things, keep that in the balance.
Thank you. Motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Moving on to resolutions, may I have a motion on A, personnel? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Discussion?
Hold up, Mr. Long, 1 second.
Oh, yeah. Yes, okay. Before we get started, Mr. Valon, I'll give you a chance to speak in a moment. We are going to be pulling for a separate vote 9, 11, and 16.
And 24?
And 24. 9, 11, 16, and 24. Mr. Valon, does that cover what you wanted to speak about, sir?
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you. So, may I have a motion for the balance of A?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait, we need a vote. Mr. Demikoff, please poll the board.
Mr. Barrera.
Yes.
Mr. Kugler.
Yes.
Mrs. Lamparello.
Yes.
Mrs. Torres.
Yes.
Mr. Valon. Yes. Ms. Dolan.
Yes.
And Mr. Rivera.
Yes. And Mr. Demikoff, can you please? Is there a discussion on 9?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Valon.
Testing. Mr. President, I know that we just recently voted for Mr. Demikoff to remain as an interim on a per diem basis on a daily rate. And this just happened in April. And I'm concerned now that here we are again. We committed ourselves to Mr. Demikoff, but it appears that there's some type of change. He changed his mind, it looks like. So I'm concerned about appointing individuals who are not going to be committed to the district and are prepared to take other jobs a month later or even less. So I think it's unfair for Mr. Demikoff to present himself as a committed business administrator and committing himself to the district and then just arbitrarily deciding that he's going to take a different position. I don't like that. And this is not the type of hiring that I would like to see this board in our district doing. And I just want to make that clear publicly. I had a conversation with Mr. Demikoff, and his response to me was less than favorable. It came across as sort of, if you don't like it, just vote no. I found that quite disrespectful on the part of Mr. Demikoff to suggest that my concerns and my questions are irrelevant, which I feel are very important to this district as a whole. That's what I have to say regarding number 9.
Mr. Vaughn, you had a conversation with Mr. Demikoff concerning his role here at the school, in the school district?
And Mr. Demikoff suggested to me that he wasn't happy with my comments at the last meeting where his name was on the agenda. He did not like the fact that I questioned his salary. So he said to me in the future, please just give me a call so that I could answer any of the questions that you have.
And this was a face-to-face conversation, sir?
Yeah, Mr. Demikoff called me by telephone.
Mr. Demikoff called you?
He returned his call.
You returned his call. So you contacted Mr. Demikoff, is that correct, sir?
Mr. Demikoff contacted me, Mr. President.
Did you contact the superintendent first?
Excuse me?
Did you contact the superintendent first? Did you discuss this with Dr. Tomko first?
I'm sorry, I'm not following your.
I'm asking you-
I'm not following your questions here.
I'm
What are you
wondering,
driving at,
I'm wondering,
Mr.
Mr. Valon, why did you not speak to the superintendent
About what?
about whatever this conversation was about?
I just explained why, Mr. President. I responded to Mr. Demikov's request. Are you having a problem with this, Mr. President?
I'll reserve my comment. Dr. Santo, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, if I may. Mr. Demikoff, just to say, has done extraordinary things here to help us get out of deficit, stay out of deficit, and I think moving forward, once everything is settled here, I think this performance is very commendable. He has been appointed by the Commissioner and Governor to be a state monitor. So that's where he's going. He's not going to be another BA somewhere or an interim anywhere. He's becoming a state monitor, which is probably the highest order. So again, I just wanted to clarify that.
I would just like to add that I know personally that Mr. Demikoff did not apply. He was recruited. He was recruited by high-ranking officials of the Department of Education and asked to go to this other school district, which is experiencing the same fate that Belleville went through. And they're in a large deficit. He has the experience of working in districts like that, and has the best hope for that district, that they get them out of the deficit and put them back on the track. Once again, he was recruited, and it was a higher call.
Thank you, Mr. Egan. Mr. Demikoff, I just want to thank you for your service, sir. I mean, there's been a noticeable difference since you've taken over that role. I'm sorry to see you go. I almost wish that we could have hired you, but we know that you're retired, you're moving on to better things. So again, sir, thank you for your service.
If I might just add, I'd like to thank you and the board, the present board and the past board for all your support and all your help. It was a pleasure serving you in the community of Belleville, and I'm happy that I made a significant contribution to solving your financial situation. Thank you very much.
Is there any further comment? Any further discussion? Mr. Dem, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'd like to add something to that. First, let me just congratulate Mr. Demikoff on his qualifications and having been reached out for such a position. Having said that, I reserve my vote now when the voting comes. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Further discussions on number 9? Or
Yes, on number 9, sir.
No.
Okay, Mr. Demikoff, please call the roll.
Mr. Barrera?
For 9, yes.
Mr. Kubler?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamparello?
Yes.
Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Valon?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
And Mr. Rivera?
Yes. May I have a motion on number 11? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Valon.
Well, my position remains the same. Here we are. He was called to a higher calling, which means outside of Belleville, our district, which is really what I'm concerned about. Nothing is a higher calling than our kids and than my kids. My feeling is that here we are now, offering him a position on a per diem basis, hourly basis. How do we know he's even going to comply with this? And how is he going to do both jobs? He's a monitor in another district. I mean, how much is enough for one person? My feeling is we should be looking for someone else who has not turned away our job offer and would come here and commit himself to our district and to our children. So my feeling is that there shouldn't be a position being offered to this gentleman based on his flip-flopping back and forth based on the commitment that we made to him that he walked away from. That's all I have to say on this matter.
Yes, Dr. Tomko?
Yeah, I think that's a real easy answer. Yes, of course. The hourly rate is going to be part of the transition. We have Mr. Demikoff here who's worked on the budget. He's worked on everything else that's financial, even the auditor findings. I don't know how anyone else could step in without having some type of assistance. We need some assistance from Mr. Demikoff as he leaves. It's not an uncommon thing with interims. So again, the hourly rate can happen on Saturdays, evenings, whenever it's necessary. It's not going to be a daily thing. It's going to be an as-needed basis. This is, again, an extremely important transition right now as we come out of deficit. With our first or second strong, I'm having a hard time talking. There's a lot of talking.
Excuse me.
We're having a transition out of deficit. It's very important to have the person that was here helping us get out of that be able to assist us. And this is the record that the board needs to make as a resolution. It's not an uncommon thing. And I will continue to monitor the amount of hours, time, and money that is spent, which I believe will be extremely minimal, because he will be in another district. And I will report that to the board on a weekly or monthly basis, however the board president wants that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tomko. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President. Is there I was informed that for the per diem daily rate that there was a cap instituted on this particular contract, which was number 9. For this particular appointment, is there a contract and is there a cap?
The answer is no, Mr.
So essentially, you multiply this times 280 hours, which is a full-time FTE, that's a considerable amount of money that could transition to Mr. Demikoff on this part-time basis. I have concerns about that.
I understand that. I appreciate the question. I don't know how that'd be even physically possible if he's working under a state monitor here and as a state monitor. I'm pretty sure that that would kind of be a Trenton issue.
Well, let me help you, Mr. Superintendent. Okay?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
An 8-hour period is one shift. Say you work 9 to 5.
Right.
You can conceivably work another shift in the evening, another 8 hours. So you could do 2,080 hours without any problem. Mr.
I stand corrected,
Superintendent, I don't like making light of what I'm trying to do here.
I'm absolutely not making light. What I'm saying to you is this. You have Mr. Demikoff, who is under a state monitor's guise here. He is going to be a state monitor under the governor and commissioner. I do not think that any of those offices would allow him to work whatever number you're saying, as opposed to me, like I said, I will make sure that you have reports bi-monthly, however you would like them, to make sure you can monitor his hours. It's very simple. Again, this is a very important transition.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
If I may add to it, Mr. Demikoff will not be in charge of when he comes in. It may be because he needs his business office, that if a particular problem arises that we need his expertise on. He's not coming in every day. He's not even working full day. This is, as the superintendent said, this is important for Belleville, to have a smooth transition, especially at the end of the fiscal year, when the books have to be closed, and you're making the arrangements for the auditors to come in. I'm just very happy that he consented to do it, because he's going to have his hands full in the new district. The fact that he volunteered and consented to do this, it's great for Belleville.
Well, Mr. Regan, I appreciate that, and I know you have the highest confidence in Mr. Demikoff, and I appreciate those comments, and we certainly need to transition in a smooth fashion, and this is my concern. If we're transitioning and we're putting this into a gentleman's hands who just a month ago made a commitment to us, and now here he is 4 weeks later walking away from it, that's my concern, and that's all I have to say on the matter.
Well, again, Mr. Demikoff, I'm going to thank you that you're going to be staying with us and giving us those hours that you are able to give us. In the past, we've gone through transitions with at least 3 or 4 VAs over the past 4 or 5 years. And the fact that you're willing to stay on and help us go through this transition is greatly appreciated by me, and I hopefully by the rest of the district. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I repeat what I said earlier, and I appreciate the service that Mr. Demikoff provided. However, I think it's time that we move forward and move on. And unfortunately, we have to cut ties, in my opinion. And I do wish him the best of luck, and a very big thank you for the help that he has done.
Thank you. Anything further? Mr. Demikoff, please call the roll.
Mr. Barrera?
No.
Mr. Kubler?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamparello?
Yes.
Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Valon?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
And Mr. Rivera.
Yes. Moving on to item number 16, may I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Discussion.
Mr. Valon?
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't mean to bore everyone with my comments, but I'm afraid that this agenda just has so many issues here that I'm concerned about. In particular, these new titles and positions, I don't think that they're really necessary. I feel that your existing staff that you have is very well paid. We have some of the most highest paid principals and administrators, I was told recently. And I don't understand why you just can't assign these tasks to these individuals without these titles. It could simply be put into their job descriptions. That's my feeling. I'm very concerned about this chief engagement and partnership officer who's going to be allowed to create communications to the public, to community groups, under your tutelage, not under the board's. My feeling is that any communications and any work with community groups from the board should be handled by our superintendent, who has been hired to do so. Channeling or delegating this responsibility to someone else, I feel is dangerous in that the communication to the staff, communication to the public may not represent those positions of the board, but rather the positions of the administration. And it's for that reason, and that reason alone, it doesn't matter to me if it's Mr. Jones or Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith, who you put in that position. My feeling is that the superintendent is the one who should be engaging the community, engaging the community groups with the oversight of the board. And it's for that reason that I feel that these titles, in particular this Chief Engagement and Partnership Officer, should not be approved by this board. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Demikoff, please call the roll.
Mr. Barrera?
Yes.
Mr. Kubler?
Yes.
Mrs. Lamparello?
Yes.
Mrs. Torres?
Yes.
Mr. Valon?
No.
Ms. Dolan?
Yes.
And Mr. Rivera.
Yes. Moving on to item number 24, may I have a motion? Is there a second? Second. Is there a discussion?
Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Hall.
Well, we just talked about those positions that I mentioned, the three, they're here. I'm opposed to them, and I want to make that clear. I'm also concerned about the situation between School 9 and School 10, where we're splitting up the principal again, and the moving of another principal who was a long-term administrator at one school going to a different school. I stood at that podium ad nauseum fighting for the principals that we had at our elementary school that were overseeing our children's education. At that time, we supported every single principal that was there, and every year we went through a new principal. The effect that that had on the home and school or PTA organizations, the effect that it had on parents, the effect that it had on students, was difficult to deal with. As a father watching, as a member watching, I came here, I asked the board, please do not transfer again, give us some continuity. But the board saw it fit to transfer and remove principal after principal. In fact, my children, I should say my son at this point, has had a different principal every single year. And I'm troubled by that. And I'm sure that, and I understand where the superintendent is new and he has to come in and he's making adjustments, and making all these changes. It breaks my heart. I'm suffering sitting here. My hands are tied and there's very little that I can do. And I see members coming to the podium. I see the same things going on. The faces have changed, but the actions are the same. And I'm concerned that we're not getting it as board members, that we don't understand or we're not in tune with what's best for our kids. And Mr. President, it's for this reason that I wanted this discussion, and I appreciate the opportunity to state my concerns and to try and sway my colleagues away from this vote to a no vote. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Barrera?
I totally disagree with part of the changes in this category of number 24. And I'm not quite sure how to, well, you know what, I am. I am voting no for a portion of it.
Mr. Barrera, we're not calling for a vote
No, I
right now.
understand that.
Let me explain to you what you're going to need to do, sir. You need to, if on this particular item, if you want something to be pulled out and voted on separately, you can let us know which ones they are.
And that would be by indicating the names of the individuals,
Yes.
correct? Okay, great. I do that now?
You can let me know, yes, let us know which ones you would like to poll separately, sir.
Okay, Mincelli, Morella, Pizzi, Politano, Rotunda, Robel.
I'm sorry, slow down, sir, slow down. Telly, Morella,
Pizzi,
Pizzi,
yes.
Politano,
Rotunda, Robel,
right,
and Torres.
Torres. Now, do you want them all split separately, or can you?
No, that you can bunch that up.
You can bunch those together. Okay. You have to speak to this.
I have addressed this with the board. The teachers that you were just, Mr. Barrera has just pulled out, and secretary, these are voluntary transfers. So I would ask Mr. Barrera to reconsider that.
Say volunteer.
Yes, they volunteered, voluntary. Yes. It doesn't, it's transfer is a transfer. The board's aware of what's voluntary or mandatory. We talked about some of the other situations here. I don't want to get into personal issues, but we had plenty of time to discuss these. So I just would request that you vote on it as an entire item. Because one transfer or one denial of a transfer is going to lead to another situation of another person that's being transferred or not. So, and some people on here are also non-tenured, which again, positioning is the board's prerogative.
Are we able to know why these individuals requested volunteer transfer?
We cannot discuss that in public, sir. Are you going to still request that vote?
Yes.
Okay, any further discussion?
Mr. President, my understanding is then that we are grouping the entire category 24 as a vote.
No, sir. Right now, what's going on is that we are going to be voting 24A and 24B. We're going to do that.
Can we have a small
Okay, so Cusmano through Kelleher will be under A, and Michele to Torres will be under B. Yes, Mr. Cooper?
I think
what Nelson's might request is a 5-minute recess just to further discuss this.
Clarify that.
Okay, can I, is there, okay. There's a motion to go in, there's a motion to recess to private. Do I have a second?
Who put the motion?
Mr. Cooper. Is there a second? I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? We'll take a 5-minute recess.